two together, obviously.
Yes, because these have all been going on Spotify. I've been very consistent with that.
Yeah, I think with the if we're not live, yeah,
We are live.
we're back live.
Oh, we yes, we are back live.
You
But you
you
know
did
what?
not tell us that.
Well, I mean, we don't have anyone watching, so say whatever you want.
We can say whatever we like.
No, I was just going to say that. No, I'll save it for the end. So,
Okay.
so
Let's go ahead and jump into movies.
I was going to say your sheer patriotism temporarily cut things out.
Kill
Yes.
the stream.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know who's going first, but somebody talk about a movie.
Am I going first? Because I've got the oldest one.
Yes, you do that, and make sure you talk about how important that American is in that title.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because that's what this episode's all about.
Yeah, so America, and obviously whilst I'm doing you, I will doodle a little American flag and do some colouring in to make sure that's good and not have 50 stars in it, obviously.
Okay, I was gonna ask if you knew how many stars were there. So
50, although apparently aren't like a couple of those states actually technically constitution, so there's only about 47 states.
I mean they're all states. There's 48 contiguous states.
Whatever that means, yeah.
Yeah,
As in
coagulating.
they're all on the same part of the continent, all touching each other.
I was going to say Alaska and Hawaii. If they're not colonies, I don't know what is.
Yeah, they definitely Hawaii, Alaska. I mean, that's basically Russia. So,
I mean, it was Russia at one point, wasn't it? I think.
Sure, could be. They don't teach us about Alaska.
Oh, thank God, it's not just us. Yeah. So apparently they don't teach you about Paris either.
No, not other than they're a bunch of surrender cheese eating
surrender monkeys. Is that?
I wasn't gonna say.
I don't even know where that phrase comes from. Where does it?
Yeah. So yeah. Well, isn't it Python or something?
I think so. Yeah, it might be Python. Cheese. Okay, I shouldn't be looking this up really, but
yeah. By the way, yeah, if we somehow by some miracle do get a French watcher, sorry.
Simpsons.
Nope. You know who it's? Yeah, it is by Ken Keeler for The Simpsons.
Of course.
So yeah, it is an American's fault, as is a lot of things. But yeah, I did.
Which it's technically, I mean, your fault then as well.
Yeah, if we're gonna go back that far, everything's Africa's fault because we all came out of Africa.
That's a good
the
point.
Evolution.
Blame Africa.
Well, they blame us for everything, so okay. Quite rightly too.
Yeah, quite. That's not unfair.
No. So in this an episode of talking about
we'll do that
Americans
movie
being America and free from everyone else, I did a movie about one going to another part of the world. One that's also fairly well known for colonizing places. So American in Paris.
Does that make y'all the Alaska and Hawaii of Europe?
Not anymore.
No. No, I think we're like the seaport. Is it seaport or seafort? The one that's like it's like a military base, which is like a country on its own now that declares itself, and it has a king and a football team and stuff like that. And it's
Is
literally
that
just
the
like
Principality of Sealand?
That's the one, yeah. Yeah, I think we're a slightly bigger version of that. Pretty much, and all we've got going for us is we beat the Germans in the war and gave the Beatles, and that's about it, propping up our economy. So American in Paris is a 1951 musical inspired by the piece American in Paris by George Gershwin, the composer from 1928. And it's Gene Kelly doing Gene Kelly tap dancing to jazz in Paris with a loose bit of thread going on that he's like a painter and like a rich woman like tries to use his paintings and like prey on him, but he also wants this other girl, but the other girl secretly is actually like with a guy that Gene Kelly and him happen to be mates, and neither of them know, and all this is going on, and it's all like that, and it's kind of a bit like that, but the main reason for it essentially is to have Gene Kelly tap dancing and singing and stuff like that. And the main kind of section in it is that right at the end, we have George Gershwin's piece, An American in Paris, like 16, 17 minutes long. And they went and they essentially, right at the end, did a whole musical ballet choreographed number to this 16-minute long piece, which apparently Gershwin did as a kind of a viewpoint of an American walking through Paris and hearing like the sights and the sounds of the joyous bits and then in the quiet of the night and stuff like that. And they use this to almost retell the story of these two people's courtships that has been going on for the last hour and a half or so in a 16-minute ballet piece, which and then they call it American in Paris. And to be honest, that's the highlight of the entire film, because it is glorious in every way. It's proper Americana musical film number. That's what it is, and that's the reason that you watch this film. Is like, I was not expecting it. I didn't know anything about this going in, aside from it won a massive amount of Academy Awards. But then you get to it, and it goes, and it keeps going and going and going and going. And you go, okay, this is the good bit, because it's fun and it's extravagant, and a lot of the sets are done like kind of sketches and paintings, so it's like the inside of his mind, and it's meant to be almost set inside his mind, and he's reliving everything through this piece of music, and it looks great. Apparently, I'm seeing little bits. I can't remember where I saw that it was the most expensive musical number ever to make at that point, and it was like $500,000 at the time, which is now like 5.7 million in today's money. Thankfully, unlike the helicopter downing in Sahara that didn't actually make it into the film, that they spent like $2.5 million on, this did make it into the film, and it looks amazing, and it looks gorgeous, and it was originally done in Technicolor. I think apparently a couple of reels have been lost, and there's some restoration work. So there's a little bit of the muting down of the kind of very vibrant, like saturated Technicolor stuff that was going on in the 50s, which anytime you watch one of the films, you go, oh, you just like eat those colors with a spoon. And to be honest, when Technicolor came back in, I think most of the films just threw color at a screen because they could. And so it's a little bit muted, but it looks glorious. The music is great, and it's good fun. And yeah, all of those $500,000 make it onto the screen. It got nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Academy Awards and won 7. So it won Best Picture, it won Best Story and Screenplay, it won Best Art Direction for Color, won Best Cinematography Color, won Best Costume Design Color, it won Best Scoring of a Musical Picture, and the Academy Honorary Award went to Gene Kelly, and it got nominated for Editing and Director as well. Hilariously enough, the British Academy Film Awards, so BAFTA, only got a nom for Best Film from Any Source. So essentially what happened is it got nominated in some other things, Golden Globes, it won Best Picture, but then only got another 2 noms. National Board of Film of Review Awards, we got 3rd place. Film Preservation, it got inducted years later. Writers Guild of America got it. But essentially it was like a couple all the way through, and then the Oscars were just like, there's nominated 9 times and having to win 7 times, you know. And the irritating thing is that yes, it's fun and it's lighthearted, but at the same time, like there's bits that kind of, it just feels like a standard musical, if that makes sense. There's nothing incredibly special about a lot of its runtime. Gene Kelly is obviously Gene Kelly, and he's having fun. He's tap dancing and stuff like that. And the opening is quite funny because it's a voiceover narration, which you'd initially think, oh my God, Kieran is going to rip this apart, because you know how much I hate voiceovers. And the initial shot is quite fun because it's one of the fountains. I'm not sure if it's at the Arc de Triomphe, but it's a fountain in Paris. And it goes, this is Paris, and I'm an American who lives there. That's like the opening bit. And then it gives you to like a little apartment block that he's got because he's a struggling artist, aka he has no money. and there's a little like proper French street, you know, like all the cobbles and stuff like that. And the crane pans up and he goes, "I live in this building," and it goes up to 1, and it's like a guy and a girl making out. I was like, "Nope, 1 more higher," and it goes up, and it's just him, and he's got like a bed that he kind of gets out of and rolls back into the ceiling and unfolds a table and chairs from out of a cupboard and all these kind of things, and it's really kind of not squat and solid, but he's been living there for a while, that he knows everything. And his best mate is apparently a traditional concert pianist, which is another way of saying unemployed. There are some just like lines like that are great, but at the same time, there's nothing incredible that sticks out. Obviously, the musical numbers are fun, because it's Gene Kelly doing musical numbers in a Technicolor film in the 50s. It's going to be fun, and that's the point. But there's nothing incredible about it.
Well, Kieran, I didn't realize this was a tone poem and not like an actual lyrical poem. So it's just music playing while people dance around.
Yeah. So
like I was picturing like a John Galt-esque, long speech.
No. So American in Paris is like a 16-minute concerto. Call it what you want. It's an orchestral piece of music that he calls a tone poem. So it's meant to describe going to various places, parts, and towns, and using the music to describe going through Paris rather than using speech. Hence, they call it a tone poem, because it has some kind of story created by the music, if you want to say that. If you're thinking of who did Carnival of the Animals? I forget now. I really should know. All these pieces of music that are meant to represent different animals. So if you put several of those in a row, then you'd get that. That's now really annoying.
I'm thinking Peter and the Wolf. That's not the same thing, but it has like the motifs and stuff for the characters.
Sans sense. Peter and the Wolf. Now, I'm annoyed because I don't remember that. Sergei Prokofiev. Okay, yeah. But so yeah, there's no speech in it. And actually, it's quite funny because just before that, this is again near the right end of the film. Everything comes to a head when he goes to a party and with the older woman who he's like, I really do owe a lot to, because she's giving him the money to finance a painting career and put on exhibitions and things like that, and goes there, and the girl he's kind of madly in love with, whose name I've obviously now forgotten, he's in love with Lise Bouvier, played by Leslie Caron. I'm trying to do a French accent, it's not doing very well.
I would say Leslie Caron.
Caron. Yeah. I'm trying to do the typical French and hope that you just miss out the last letter of any name, and hope it works. But yeah, so he's and she's going off and essentially going with his best mate the next day. It's Mila Roberts play. Somebody again, I've forgotten the names. I've got it all here in front of me, but I've still forgotten. And essentially they go off, and he gives us last minute thing to Lise, and goes, stay with me, blah blah blah. And they admit they love each other, but she owes this other guy so much because he sheltered her during the war over many years and has been with him. So there's almost like a debt of gratitude being owed in marrying him. And they drive off in the car, and she's looking out the window, sad and despondent. And this is before the big American in Paris ballet scene. And it's like, the guy is like, "Are you okay?" And she just kind of stares there. And then it cuts back to Gene Kelly, and it goes to this really intense kind of close up on the face, almost dark, because the whole thing blacks out. And it's not like a Kubrick stare, but it's the kind of thing that he could have done, or a Hitchcock, a very kind of subjective kind of thing when you realize you're going into his mind. And like from that point onwards, there's no dialogue for the rest of the film. It's 30 seconds of going into his mind. You then get this big orchestrated, choreographed ballet kind of reenactment of him reenacting his courtship with Lise for kind of 16, 17 minutes.
You get to watch the whole movie again, basically.
Yeah, but in the form of a ballet. And it's really fun, and it's lavish, and he's got all the costumes, and he's dancing around and all this kind of thing. You get the ups and the downs and that. And then it comes back out, and he's about to go back into the party where he hears like a horn honking outside and looks over the balcony, and she's come back for him. Hollywood ending. And he goes back out, and then it ends. So there's not even any dialogue for that bit. So the last 16 minutes of the thing, plus maybe 2 minutes or a minute or so before and a minute or so after, there's no dialogue. And actually that's really weird, because there's not even a she's come back for me kind of thing right at the end. These things that the 40s 50s might do, or those kind of moments. You don't even have that. You don't even have her calling. It's like, are you still there? It's like, oh my god, I hope I haven't missed him, something like that. There's nothing. So even like, and there's a bit in it where they're saying, Paris is wonderful, and then he goes, you know what, maybe I've had enough of Paris. Paris has essentially done it in for me. It's great until you live here for a while, and then it's not so much. And actually, when I was watching that bit, I thought of the criticisms that a couple of people had of Amélie when it came out, which was, it is such a romanticized.
It's French.
Well, no, this was from a lot of the French critics as well, that it was such a romanticized Paris, that it was so happy and light and joyous and stereotypical, the accordions and stuff like that. They didn't actually show kind of, it's a capital city and one of the most powerful nations on earth. There are dark sides to it, and you don't really get that. And a city can become claustrophobic and things can happen, and that was one of the criticisms of Amélie, that it was almost too light and completely oblivious to this. And it was almost like he was pointing out, a melodramatic, despondent character that's just lost his love interest kind of way. That was there. And so this last bit, there's almost like you get a slight bit of that. So it's slightly there, but at the same time, they have to give a slightly happy ending because it's a 1950s musical, obviously.
I mean, do you have anything about how it was received generally in France, in France, as opposed to the rest of the world?
In France? No. I don't.
I mean, famously, French are particularly harsh about their own kind of products. When they introduce like legislation to kind of make sure there was a certain amount of French films in cinemas every year, but equally they will rip anything apart. When they feel like it's overreaching itself, or it's it's a bit misguided. Or
I mean, I know a lot of countries that have smaller film production systems do that. France do that. I know Wales, the arts cinema in Aberystwyth have to show a certain amount of films with Welsh connections in it over the year. So I don't know how many it is. I don't know if it's like 5 or 6 different films outside of their kind of little festival stuff, but they have to make sure that those go in order to meet a quota for kind of exponents and help get funding and places like that. And I'm fairly sure places like Romania and China and Japan will do similar things that a certain percentage has to be from the country. So I don't actually know about that, although whilst other people are talking, I could have a little look. But the New York Times from October 1951 by Bosley Crowther, that I managed to dig up, essentially said roughly the same thing that I did, although he had much more praise for whoever plays Lise. I've now lost the name. Leslie Caron, who essentially goes, Leslie Caron is the reason to go watch it, and when she's on screen, everything's great. Everything else is kind of just muddles through, even a few of the Gershwin pieces that they kind of tap dance to in the kind of musical sections. And before the main finale, are just kind of there to go through it. But he's like, whenever Leslie Caron's on there, the world lights up. Everything is better for it. And actually, that's something that a lot of Vincent Price's early reviews got reading part of the book that I got. Was essentially going, the rest of the movie is also, but Vincent Price is, the place to go. It lights up the screen. So there's a very similar thing with that.
I'm sorry if you mentioned it. I just saw it was directed by Liza Minnelli's dad. So they got
who it is?
Yeah, so they got an Italian guy to direct this American in Paris movie.
Yep. Well, look, if it works, who cares?
And he may actually be American, but whatever.
Well, apparently did well, because Liza Minnelli apparently that the guy who directed this is her father, and her mother is Judy Garland, which I didn't know.
You'd be surprised. Her voice is beautiful. Oh wait.
Yeah. And Roger Ebert's retrospective review after it got put back in goes essentially it was comparing it a lot to Singing in the Rain, which came the year after, and goes it's good and it's fun, but there's a few issues here and there. He particularly didn't like there's the one character which Levant, who is played by, as I go to wiki, somebody that obviously is not put on wiki because that's great. There's one character essentially he knows both of the main guys, and Gene Kelly comes in and goes, "Oh, I'm in love with one girl," and it's like, "Okay, you've got your woman troubles sorted." And it's like, "Oh, but another one is in love with me." It's like, "Isn't that always the case?" And then goes, "Why don't you just tell them how you love her?" And it's like, "Yeah, I will tell her." It's like, "What's her name?" It's like Lisa Boo, and he's like, "Oh." He's like spills his coffee because it's like, "Oh my god, I know who that is, and she's actually dating your best mate," kind of thing. And then his best mate walks in the room, and neither of those two know. And he's just like, "I'm just going to keep drinking because I can try and stop this conversation, but I can't walk out of this without." Yeah, I can't walk out of this without it being weird, And they're going to ask the questions like, "I'm going to keep drinking coffee and like smoking cigarettes and hope to get through this." Essentially,
it's like driving past a car crash. It's like you don't want to be sensitive, but you can't look away.
Yeah, and he's in the middle of it. He knows that he knows all three of them, and the other two don't know that they're actually seeing the same girl. So he's just there, and it's a funny movie moment that breaks out into a musical number. But it's hilarious because at that point that everything's got to come crashing down. So the next scene after they meet up and like she spills the secret and stuff like that. So I think it's not an awful movie. It's really good and fun. The main thing you're waiting for is this big
I'm glad you think the Oscar-nominated film is not a bad movie.
I don't know. Some of them we did crash about a year ago, and
Great Green Book.
Yeah, I mean the Oscars. And what was the Will Smith one that won a couple of years ago that nobody had ever heard of?
$1 Million Bait. No, hang on.
It was
because he punched Chris Rock.
Was it Coda or something like that? Like
Code is the sign language one.
No, what was the one that Will
Aladdin
Smith won for? No, he won one.
Well, you got Best Actor for King Richard.
The YouTube Rewind.
No, it was Coda. Coda won. What? Why am I
Will Smith is in that?
No, he did.
Thank you, sir.
Why am I losing my mind?
I don't know.
Was he in like the documentary or something like that? But yeah, when essentially it was the year when you had Power of the Dog, Belfast, Don't Look Up, Dune was in there, the West Side Story remake was in there, and Coda went, and everyone goes, "What was this movie?" That nobody was. Literally, everyone was going into that year going, "It's going to be Belfast or Power of the Dog." So those are your two options.
I remember reviewing it for the film magazine and thinking, well, this review is just going to be buried by the end of the year. And it's like the Oscars come around, it's like, no, that's the most popular one out there. So, all right.
Yeah. But literally, I remember everyone. I think Mark Kermode was doing it, Peter Bradshaw, and everyone's just, it's going to be either Power of the Dog or Belfast. Those are your two options, realistically. With something like Dune or Don't Look Up with an outside shot, and Coda wins. And what? So don't think that just like Best Picture is like a guaranteed automatic. This is great and everything, and you're thinking going into it.
That's fair.
Admittedly, it did beat out the other films. It beat out a couple of them I've never heard of. Decision Before Dawn, never heard of. Place in the Sun, vaguely heard of. Quo Vadis, maybe in passing, but
that's a historical.
But it also beat Streetcar Named Desire.
Ooh.
Which even I know. I know which one is the one that's actually remembered. Put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and admittedly, Oscars.
That's I haven't seen this movie, but I mean, other than the ballet sequence.
And to be honest, I think a large amount of this is recognized for that ballet sequence right at the end, and it is absolutely fantastic.
I I mean, this is still the heyday of the musical, isn't it? They were
Yeah,
like
it's
big,
1951, so
yeah, they're like big, obviously big box office, big, well, critically praised and just very much in vogue at the time, weren't
yeah,
they? You know,
And it's MGM too.
yeah.
yeah, we still had about 10 years of that, you know, before musical started to fall out of
Yeah,
fashion.
you're gonna have West Side Story coming out soon. You're gonna have Seven Brides and Seven Brothers. You've obviously got Singing in the Rain coming up next. Sound of Music, when's that? In the next 10 years or
Yeah,
so?
yeah. Well, Sound Music was sort of the tail end of that, but yeah, and also in the 50s, you had like Guys and Dolls and things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so quite a
So
few. And all the
Another
Rogers,
Brando.
yeah, and all like the Rogers and Hammerstein stuff, you know, like South Pacific and things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's in the thing.
I think it's funny. There's a French guy named Hank in this movie. The only other European, non-English speaking European person I know of named Hank is the guy who sold the rights to Tetris. Hank Rogers, I think, was his name, and he was like Dutch.
It's quite funny because although it's an American in Paris, you'd think that there's actually quite a bit of French in it. There is like the main girl in it, again, whose name I've completely forgotten. Leslie Caron's character is French, and there's a couple of others, one or two others, but a good half of them are just like, oh, we have the American, so he's automatically going to associate it with the few Americans that he can find, and they're going to form a clique. So quite a lot of the characters.
Where we'll say
American
click instead of clique.
Yeah, or completely American, and a good 95% of the dialogue is in English. There's moments where Gene Kelly speaks a little bit of French, passable French. I don't know, my French is not. But a lot of it is in English, so it's actually more American than Parisian in this. And essentially, Paris is just like a backdrop and an excuse to have it set somewhere exotic.
Yeah, and you're saying with like the painted backgrounds and all like that, it's not meant to be like a realistic view of France, is it? It's like his kind of
it's
not enough protesting.
It's an idealized post World War II. This is what we fought for, essentially, kind of thing, and it's just a thing to make it look a bit more exotic. Realistically, you could set this in New York, and there would be no difference in terms of plot. You just take
less
out
French people.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the Paris part is set dressing, in a way. So yeah, American in Paris. If you like your musicals, this is a good one to enjoy. As I'm having tech issues.
Oh, you changed mics. This reminds me of a.
No, but the cable is dangling down. I just kicked it, so it came unplugged. Yeah, but American in Paris. Like if you're filling out your Gene Kelly filmography, go for it. If you want a fun musical, go for it. If you're a fan of jazz and Gershwin, obviously you're going to check this out because it's titled and featured heavily all his music, and especially American in Paris. Is it going to absolutely change your world if you do not see this movie? No. It's not one of those. You know, there are some films, for example, something like West Side Story, where even if you're not a musicals fan, you probably need to watch it at some point. American in Paris is probably not one of those unless you're going through and watching all the Oscar winners. So it's fun, and if you watch it, you're never going to. It's not going to be a disappointment, but at all the same time, it's probably not going to be. I have to see this, otherwise my entire film life is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Taking away the musical part, this sort of reminds me of a Hallmark movie I watched recently called Savoring Paris, where an American woman named Ella embarks on a soul-searching journey to Paris, where she navigates love, self-discovery, and cheese amidst the backdrop of the city of love. Where
is there enough cheese in the film?
There is.
Because it sounds cheesy as it is.
Yeah. But it's about an American who hangs out with French people that exclusively speak English and are really just a romantic backdrop for a woman eating cheese. She could do that here. We have cheese here. We have real cheese here.
I will say this: you can tell this is an American version of France in the 50s, 60s, because aside from this one character, this one scene, there pretty much isn't anybody smoking cigarettes in a really cool manner. So
and we were allowed to do that in media because that's how we sold TV.
I was going to say, yeah, so you can tell this isn't authentically French. Give it another 5-10 years when the French New Wave kicks in.
That does surprise. Yeah, that does surprise they filmed in the 50s, though. Sure, the French obviously were head down to fine art, but everyone smoked in the 50s.
Nah, 1951.
Doctors smoked.
You get one or two of them, but it's not like the main character is sat there smoking for 10 minutes.
Doctors smoked over newborn babies.
9 out of 10 doctors recommended like tobacco as a cure-all. So.
Yep. And whiskey, it seemed. Like, you go back far enough, any vague shock it's whiskey or brandy apparently cures it. But yeah, so it's an American film that happens to have Paris in it. And it's fun, but not 100% essential.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say, I can't remember seeing a single American flag, so maybe it wasn't American enough for the podcast.
Well, did they have French flags?
They may have had one or two in the background. They didn't feature that prominently.
This is just an unpatriotic film in general, then, I guess.
I was going to say, obviously, this was not the film of choice for this specific episode of our podcast.
Nil point.
Well, Sam, I think you're going to really just boost the mood here with this movie. This is going to be a great discussion about...
Yeah. So from one Oscar-winning film with American in the title to another, I'm talking about American Beauty. And of course, me being me, I've picked a film about a satire of American suburbia, directed by a Brit. So
Sure.
Yeah. So going from that perspective now.
And starring a method actor.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So I'll get there. Don't worry. I mean, look. Coming from a personal point of view, I would like to say first that this used to be my favorite movie. This was my favorite movie when I was a slightly emo teenager. At the big introspective.
Only a slightly emo teenager.
Yeah, these kind of introspective emotions and like trying to find meaning in everything, and overly artsy kind of stuff. It appealed to me at the time.
That is awesome.
Yeah, rewatching it. It's still good, but it's understandably a bit more uncomfortable to go back to these days. So it's directed by Sam Mendes, written by Alan Ball, and it's a dark satire of American suburban life, where Lester Burnham, played by Kevin Spacey, goes through a disturbing but liberating midlife crisis, kicked off by an infatuation with his teenage daughter's school friend. So he quits his dead-end job in quite spectacular fashion. He gets into shape, he smokes a lot of weed, buys his childhood dream car, and stands up to his domineering wife. And then just when he's finally getting his act together, when he's finally happy, it all ends in tears. It won 5 Oscars for Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Actor, and Cinematography. Just missing out on the big 5, obviously, because they didn't get Best Actress. But in my opinion, Annette Bening should have also won. I think they should have joined that select group of win the big 5. It's known. It's most kind of fondly remembered for its iconic visuals. Sam Mendes' movies always look stunning. There's these meticulous framing of like the domestic scenes, and then there's like some moments that go a bit more fantastical when essentially we're inside Lester's mind and go through his daydreams and his hallucinations. It's got like a simple but beautiful and evocative score from Thomas Newman, and Alan Ball's screenplay has got a real kind of dark sense of humour to it, which I still find quite very entertaining.
Well, Sam, you know it's a good movie when there's a themes and analysis section on Wiki.
Yes, yeah, and a lot of that. I mean, it's got this reputation for being a bit up itself, and I kind of get those criticisms. I suppose don't agree with them, but I get why it rubs some people up the wrong way, and kind of why they kind of feel it's a bit pretentious in terms of like the themes and like the visual symbolism and stuff like that. I mean, this is another in a long line of films where the lead character gives away in the first scene that he's going to die over the course of the film. So you think of name some other films that do that, because my mind's just gone blank. Well, Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean. One of the things that I was thinking as well is that somebody pointed out there was a raft of films, including Fight Club and something like American Psycho, where there's a kind of, and even things like Office Space, of the kind of disgruntled blue collar worker in a cubicle kind of thing in the 90s to the end of the 90s.
Yeah. It is part of that trend. Definitely, you think of things like Falling Down as well. You know, it's like your dream to just stick it to the boss and just do whatever you want. You know, just
And even to a certain extent, like the Matrix kind of thing plays on that a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, so you see, the film opens with Kieran's favorite, a voiceover. Opens with, "My name is Lester Burnham. This is my neighborhood. This is my street. This is my life. I'm 42 years old, and in less than a year, I will be dead. Of course, I didn't know that yet, and in a way, I'm dead already." So it basically it goes through kind of his mundane life and kind of why he's so unhappy, why he's so kind of unfulfilled. He's talked down to by everyone. His family, his wife and his daughter thinks he's a loser, and they're right essentially. He's very fulfilled with his job. He doesn't have much going for him at all. Um, I mean, I think the screenplay, some of the dialogue is probably some particular lines to give space. It probably highlights for me. So, so after like this opening tracking shot, above and then through the neighborhoods, with his voiceover, he's introduced. He gets out of bed and then cuts him in the shower, and it's just again he's still commenting on what's going on. He goes, "Look at me jerking off in the shower. This will be the high point of my day. It's all downhill from here." He introduced us, to his family. So that's my wife, Carolyn. See the way the handle of her pruning shears matches her gardening clogs? That's not an accident. and about his daughter, Janie's a pretty typical teenager, angry, insecure, confused. I wish I could tell her that it's all going to pass, but I don't want to lie to her.
It's a pretty bleak movie. Let's be fair.
Yeah, but I think it has got. Okay, maybe it's just my weird sense of humor, but I would consider it a black comedy as opposed to just like a drama.
I think Wiki categorizes it as black comedy as well.
I think it's got this kind of sardonic humor to it and just this almost gallows humor. It's very Alan Ball because after this, his most famous project was Pushing Daisies, which again was very much like a literally taking gallows humor to the extreme, but it's all about death and people's reactions to it.
He created True Blood. Okay.
He also did True Blood. Yeah, there is three big things. It was American Beauty, then Pushing Daisies, then True Blood. Yeah.
Yeah, and 6 Feet Under if you're into that, but
yeah, 6 Feet Under. Yeah. Yeah, so did I mean I'm from meant 6 feet under rather than Push Days. Push Days is something else, and so yeah, 6 feet under is what I meant.
Oh, okay.
I mean the tagline of the film and arguably the core theme is "Look closer." So basically, it's all about like your perception of the world and how everything's not as it seems. I mean, it's a very classic thing. You think of like David Lynch films. They're always about there's something dark going on below the surface of this idealistic kind of perfect American neighborhood. Something dark and rotten in the heart of this. And basically, all the confident characters in this, like Carolyn and the Burnham's new neighbours, they're all kind of got their own insecurities and issues, and all these kind of more repressed, kind of trodden down kind of people, just have to let loose a bit and just do what they want for a change. And a lot like the object of his infatuation, Angela. She's she's kind of made out as that to be like this kind of perfect blonde ideal, cheerleader. Everyone seems to obsess over her, and she seems perfect, but it turns out she's very insecure about herself, and really she's a very unhappy individual and very insecure, and basically using her friend Jane, Lester's daughter, as basically to make her look better. I hang out with someone a bit plainer than me and or automatically look better, and all kind of comes out like towards the end. You know, no one's kind of quite what they seem. I mean, his new neighbour, Colonel Frank Fitz, played by Chris Cooper, again very classic kind of conservative kind of individual, you know, with like a jarhead kind of haircut. I mean, he's literally a Marine. He introduced himself as Colonel Frank Fitz, United States Marine Corps. Yeah, and yeah, but that kind of turns it's basically it's more or less stated, you know, throughout the film that he's just a self-hated, repressed homosexual, essentially. You know, he's you know, he kind of he's. I think there was an original line in the script or a flashback scene or a reference to it where he possibly was in love with someone who was in Vietnam with, who died, and then it kind of turns into like a more bitter man. He never quite got over that, but he just comes across as, you know, homophobic and highly abusive, you know, towards his wife and his son, and essentially like his moments of last moments of vulnerability right at the end. You know, he's been watching his son Ricky and Les kind of hang out, and he's assuming they're having sex. You know, he's asking for sexual favors, you know, but really they're just hang out and getting stoned with each other. And he essentially towards the end of the film he kind of walks through the rain. By the way, no one does dramatic rain quite like Sam Mendes, you know, and dramatic rain in a Sam Mendes film normally means someone's about to die. He did the same thing in Rose Petition in his next film.
Does he do it in Skyfall at any point?
Well, I suppose it opens with water, doesn't it? I mean, Bond essentially nearly dies. He gets shot off the train and lands in water, doesn't he? So,
and you've got the ice bits. You've got the ice bits near the end, haven't you? So
yeah,
Scotland, so it would do.
Yeah. But yeah, it is like a convention, like a visual cue he seems to like. Yeah, the Colonel basically walks through the rain around to Lester's house and basically just kind of collapses into his arms, you know, is kind of, and then basically tries to come on to him, and which Lester rebuffs, which inadvertently causes his own death, because it's the ultimate kind of disgrace. You know, he's finally given it who he is, and the first man who he thinks he can. You can show the truth him to rejects him. So
that's the motive for the. I've not seen this, by the way.
Yeah.
You've not seen American Beauty?
No.
Yeah, that's how I read it. And one thing I would say about it, which I'm quite surprised at, towards the end, you see several characters with guns, and you think, right, okay, so it's going to be a question about, you know, who actually did the killing, but it's made quite explicit, like the following scene. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you see Carolyn like rushing home. You know, she's been having an affair, and Lester's been really annoying her. You know, in terms of how she, but basically just as his life's got better, her life's got infinitely worse. And you know, she's really got into shooting. She's been on a shooting range, and that's how she's been releasing her frustration. And you see her racing home in the rain and looking at the gun in her handbag, and then I think Ricky at one point might have a gun as well. There are lots of guns in the Colonel's house. You know, essentially he's got a big wall of them. And then you see when Les kind of sitting at the kitchen table, you know, smiling, you know, happy. You see the gun goes back to his head and triggers pulled, and his brains get splattered. And then you think for a while, it's like, okay, so this could be a question. But then the very next scene, you see the Colonel get back to his house covered in blood, and you know, just tearing
his bloodstained top. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I think they could have left that as a question. I mean, I think the original plan of the screenplay was to have Jane and Ricky basically as the prime suspects for the murder. So it would open with them in court, you know, and kind of, you know, trying to present their side of the story. You know, because they were in the house at the time of his death, you see, whereas apparently it doesn't look like anyone else was, you know, judging by the evidence. But yeah, they ditched that. I think rather than bookending the film with kind of them on trial, they just gave them more kind of dialogue scenes together, you know, and like I got to know kind of you know, have their relationship developed a bit more clearly. I mean, there's a couple of creepy things about this film. So obviously, yeah, we'll get to the whole Kevin Spacey thing. Yeah, he's playing a character who's obsessing over a teenager, and yes, stuff's come out about him since. There's also the character of Ricky, the son of the colonel and their new neighbor, who's obsessed with Jane, Lester's daughter from when they first see each other. And his thing is filming everything, just filming life
Yeah.
passing him by. And he's got like basically a whole wall of like tapes of things he's filmed over the years. And he films her, she's arriving home, she's leaving for school, in school. He's constantly filming her and just documenting everything. One point, he's filming across the street as we does that a few times, but then it's a point where she's kind of into it, and she basically she kind of gives in. She presents herself to him, and that they're kind of two oddballs who kind of seem to get kind of a connection together. They're both a bit weird, both a bit messed up, but they kind of see eye to eye because of that. One of the most famous scenes is obviously him showing her the tape of the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, which is a plastic bag caught in the winds, just flying up and around, along with accompanied by Thomas Newman's score. And it has this big long monologue. It ends with, "Sometimes I'm amazed by how much beauty there is in the world." And I can't remember what it was on now. It was it a Family Guy sketch or was it something else? But there's some cutaway gag on some show where someone's watching that, and and it comes to that line. Sometimes I'm amazed by how much beauty there is in the world, and someone kind of stands up in the theater and says, "It's just trash and wins."
Yeah, it seems like Family Guy. I have a vague memory of something along those lines.
Yeah. So this was voted as so it was named as one of the 20 most overrated movies of all time by Premiere Magazine. And Mendes, to be fair to him, since has almost agreed with that. He kind of said it's his first film, so he reckons he's become a much better filmmaker since that. And he does say,
I mean, not
to
a
be fair,
bad first film.
no. He says it was a little overpraised at the time. Is what he says. I mean, for me, probably his next. I've said probably Rose Petition for me is probably his masterpiece. As much as I used to like this stuff, kind of that seems to have aged a bit better, and I think that's one of the songs you go back time and time again, and you will get something new out of it each time. Whereas this one, possibly the first time you see it, probably the best time, and then subsequent times it might be a lot of diminishing returns to an extent. I mean, it wasn't like a straightforward shoot as such. I mean, like Chris Cooper essentially came into it very late. I think they just started filming. I think they hadn't cast his character yet, but they lucked out in finding him, and like he kind of slot right into the cast. He was. I've just seen this actually. I noticed for the apparently screenwriter Alan Ball was sitting at the World Trade Center Plaza when he saw a paper bag floating in the wind and was inspired by it to write the film, which he originally conceived as a stage play.
Sorry,
9/11
you said the World Trade Center. Oh no.
Yeah, World Trade Center Plaza, so presumably in front of the towers. I mean,
so Kevin Spacey being in it is the second worst thing, actually.
Yeah. I mean, he. I've heard people blaming like 9/11 as one of the reasons for this film's kind of diminishing kind of critical reception, because people just said, in the grand scheme of things, after that like world-changing events, it didn't really, the stuff this film was talking about is like just let go once in a while, be yourself and appreciate the little things. Didn't really have that much weight to it anymore. Seems a bit disposable by comparison. Yeah, it wasn't like a smooth days, like a smooth filming. Sam Mendes, I think, was still, because he came from theatre. Essentially, he was very well regarded theatre director in the UK. This is his first film, and he was still trying to learn the tricks of the trade, and he was probably a bit too polite and frankly British at first, to get exactly what he wanted. So it took him a while to get the right kind of relationship, with his cast and crew. Apparently, the first day and a half of filming, including Annette Benning's first big scene where she's cleaning like an open house. She's going to be selling. She's a real estate agent. The first full day of film, this very long and complex scene had to be thrown out because the film, when they checked, the film turned out too dark, making net bending almost impossible to see. And there's stuff like Kevin Spacey like improvising and stuff and throwing like both Sam Mendes and like his the other castmates off quite a bit. I mean, I think it came with about 20 different takes for when he's caught masturbating by his wife, and like his euphemisms for it,
Yeah.
and apparently like half of them, and Ben just burst out laughing. She just couldn't keep a straight face of it. Some of the ones he came up with.
It's hard to laugh at that anecdote.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So obviously, allegations of sexual assault against Spacey. I suppose you could say they parallel Mr. Burnham's obsession with a teenager, especially since a couple of the guys have come forward and accused them were underage at the time this kind of happened. Yeah. So usually in the debate of art versus artist, you can probably put it to one side and kind of think, right, yeah, this person was bad, but I can still enjoy this, which has nothing to do with what they're considered bad for, but with this, you directly, the text is directly reminding you of the accusations and kind of what's the kind of person he is. So it is quite difficult. I mean, there was a slightly, or even more than slightly disturbing story that Mina Savari, who plays the object of Lester's fascination, Angela, she told me, I think she was 18 or 19 at the time, and before their big scene of passion, where they almost have sex together, and they go right to the point of it, and then Wes kind of has a change of heart, he grows a conscience last minute. But before filming that, Spacey apparently, I think she said this in an interview. I think she said he's serious to make her a bit more comfortable around him. So he literally took her like to the bedroom set and just laid down next to her, and then just kind of just held her gently, basically. Apparently, I mean, nothing beyond that happened, but that's a bit weird for a guy in his 40s to do. So like,
Sam, he's gay. All right, remember he announced that.
Yeah, I know. But
and he's been acquitted, and he's getting a big Italian award that's been announced in the last day or so. So
I mean, I mean, for many years, obviously, the question of sexuality was, was a favorite talking point, wasn't it? And especially because he was so, understandably, so cagey about it, because of how people around have been treated, by the industry over the years. But yeah, I think for a young actress that age, obviously she wouldn't have known that, and she probably thought, well, this is a bit strange. Like this. I mean, we're already doing a scene where I'll find completely I'll be very exposed and I'll find very uncomfortable. And now he wants to do this before even the cameras are rolling.
There's something off there.
Yeah. I mean, this whole theme of the film about voyeurism and kind of looking and being looked at, it's quite Hitchcockian in that regard, I'd say. But so it's that aspect of that makes it more uncomfortable. And one the rare occasion when there's a direct parallel between like real life events and kind of what the film is about, one of the key aspects of it. I mean, I'd like to read. There's a retrospective review of it, I think, in the Guardian. And so obviously, it was acclaimed at the time, very, very well received. It wasn't like a front run of the Oscars, but it gathered momentum and ends up winning big 5 of the big Oscars. But since then, obviously, the themes considered a bit lightweight. The world changed, and obviously the allegations, but. So it was for the Guardian. So Guy Lodge, one of the critics, wrote that the pushback against American Beauty in the intervening 2 decades has been swift and merciless, taking root well before Spacey's personal and professional downfall, although that certainly hasn't helped. Ask the critics of various ages about it now, and you will tend to be met with a uniform sneer, along with a blanket dismissal of its cheap shot picket fence satire, its broad characterization, um, its purportedly misogynistic view of career women, or its awestruck command of metaphor as flimsy and floaty. As flimsy and floaty as well, a plastic bag dancing in the breeze. You might hear grumbling acknowledgements of its formal artistry, including the satin tactility of the late Comrade L. Hall's cinematography, of the eerie, echoey, endlessly imitated percussion of Thomas Newman's once ubiquitous score. But that too is tempered but with dismissiveness towards its makers. So I would say I still think this is a good film. I don't think it's a great film anymore. I think even without the spacey aspect thing, I think I've grown as a viewer since I've seen a lot more, infinitely more complex films and films that kind of explore this similar thematic kind of ground, but with more wit and imagination, really. But I still think it's a very good looking film. I think I agree that the cinematography is really impressive, and this was like a proving ground for Sam Mendes, and it's obviously allowed to go on to bigger and better things since this.
Get knighted.
Yeah, get knighted. Yeah, do the best Bond film in my opinion.
Or at least the best modern one,
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's real gutting about Kevin Spacey, real. Cause again, he was one of my favorite actors as well. I think no one did kind of. No one did a creep like Kevin Spacey did he on camera, and then it turns out, oh, you like that in real life? Oh, it's not as fun anymore.
I was going to say, within 5 years, you had Seven, you had Usual Suspects, you had American Beauty. Like, it was an absolute tear of kind of the normal guy that turns out to be not so normal.
Or the guy who wasn't in the movie also, but then showed up.
Yeah.
I hate to say that he's like my separate. Like I said, I haven't seen this, but I can't stop watching Kevin Spacey movies. Like I'll watch no Roman Polanski movies except for Chinatown. Kevin Spacey is my free square. I won't watch Woody Allen. He's a good performer, and it's a shame that he was so fun and charismatic.
I mean, again, from personal perspective, again, like say my bridge that I've not across now is J.K. Rowling. I appreciate that Harry Potter was a big part of my childhood, and it was like I was just the right age for it, and it gave me many happy years of enjoying that world and the world she's written. But she's such a terrible human being now. I can't do anything in that universe and not think about her and how she's still doing it and keeps digging, and she's so
it's not like she had some views and she's learned and changed her ways, or made a slip up, a careless kind of comment and gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested on the space front whether he does have a resurgence at some point. I mean, I think they've didn't he have a film like a couple of years ago, and it got one of the lowest box offices ever. It's like only like a few $1,000s or something at the box. I can't remember what it was.
That doesn't surprise me.
After
obviously they had to reshoot his scenes in All the Money in the World with Christopher Plummer, didn't they?
Yeah. That was when Ridley Scott was called in last minute, wasn't it?
Yeah. Ridley Scott's called last minute, and Christopher Plummer, bless him, reshot all of Kevin Spacey's scenes in a week. It's just and got an Oscar nomination out of it.
That's impressive.
Sometimes it happens, and and my thing, you were saying that similar things, films have been done. With kind of the slightly more creative. For some reason, I was just sat here and thinking of kind of the dark side of kind of the mundanity of modern American suburbia, and for some reason Donnie Darko crept into my head. And just the scenes of just because yes, you've got the whole time travel-y weird stuff in it, but a lot of it is about Donnie trying to make sense of a ridiculously mundane world in which he doesn't fit into, and it is set in rural suburban America, Americana, if you want to say.
Yeah, and like a lot of like say the Coen Brothers stuff is like that as well. It's kind of it's ordinary people, normally idiots, just trying to bumble through life, and hilarity ensues. And oftentimes it's like it's really a dark form of hilarity.
Yeah.
I mean, the title American Beauty apparently it refers to a type of rose, and obviously one of the most famous images is the dream of the rose petals falling on a nude teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Does it say much about America itself as a state of society at the time in the late 90s?
Well, that's one of the other things I was thinking, because I'm fairly sure I'd seen American Beauty, or I'd seen enough of it to have seen it, but I went and rewatched it for this, because it was one of those films where I'm like, I must have seen it at some point, but I couldn't remember actually physically watching it. There's several like that. But I watched it, and I was thinking about if it's going to be taking apart bits of modern America and almost seeing the futility of the American dream kind of thing, which is the angle that it's starting to go for and never quite reaches it. Something even like Us. The Jordan Peele film, where a lot of commentators have said is a breakdown of the American dream and is one letter removed from USA.
Yeah. I mean, and it's less than that in terms of it's not Lester achieving the American dream. It's Lester achieving a dream he had when he was about 12. It's like it's like a teenage dream. He's like he just wants to sit around all day smoking pot, dreaming about the hot cheerleader, and if he ever came to a bit of money, he'll buy himself a big red sports car.
Firebird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an interesting film, and it's got some really nice moments that are remembered for a reason. And in a certain way, you can see why it won the Oscar, but at the same time, if it came out today, it would not.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite scene by quite some distance, and I still love this scene, is the one of the most awkward dinner table scenes in history. I love an awkward dinner table scene.
Is that the pass the asparagus scene?
Yes, it is. Yes, so Lester's quit his job, and he has a big argument with his wife and daughter. She's trying to dominate him, and he finally stands up to her. No one will pass him the asparagus, so he walks around the table to the wife's end, grabs the asparagus, comes back, puts a bit on his plate, and then when she still won't shut up, he throws it at the wall, and announces that he's sick of being treated like he doesn't exist. He's going to do what he wants when he wants from now on, and they're going to alternate their choice of dinner music, because he's sick of what his wife always puts on. He's like,
you can tell that wouldn't happen today. The idea of an actual family sitting around the dinner table, they're all in trays in front of the TV. Come on.
He came to chew bubble gum and kick asparagus, and he was all out of gum.
Yeah.
Yep. Although hilariously enough, on Bubblegum, I will just say that apparently the main character in American in Paris, Gene Kelly's character, a couple of the local French kids, he's like he literally goes, "I'm essentially their man because I give them American bubblegum." That's what I love from him. So there you go, we've got bubblegum in there.
Yeah.
That's all you need to have a bunch of street kids.
Yeah. So I think it's I still like it. I think it's a good film. It's more difficult to watch now, and it's lost some of its appeal. But it's led on to bigger and better things for Sam Mendes, and everyone involved deserves credit for good work. I say. If you haven't seen it, I'd say give it a go. It's still interesting, still entertaining, but. Yes, maybe not of the Oscar winners. It's probably mid-table by now, I'd say. It's kind of.
And I will say you could probably take 10 minutes out of it and nothing much would change. It's got a 2 hour. It's got a 2 hour runtime. You can
it's not overly long.
I
think it's about right, really. Just hair under 2 hours.
I'm not saying it's overly long, but I'm also saying you could take 10 minutes out and nothing much would change.
It does sound Fight Clubby to me. Like
there's an aspect of the kind of disgruntlement of modern America that's in there, but at the same time, not Fight Club.
Yeah, definitely is. Though I think the kind of fans you get of American Beauty versus the fans of Fight Club couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
Or are they the same? I don't know.
Yeah, the fans of American Beauty are the art housey ones. The fans of Fight Club are the people that wish they were the art housey ones, or the ones that think they are the art housey ones.
See, I was thinking like right-wing dissidents who are also on the internet trolling for inappropriate interactions with teenagers. So
anyway, we've done 2 movies that happen to be about America in some tangential sense.
Jacob, well, they're in the title.
Yeah, give us the most patriotic film of all time.
I didn't know I was discussing Les Miserables, but I watched The Patriot, which I'm going to read a quote here. This is from Salon, a 2000 article. You could actually argue, without too much exaggeration, that The Patriot is as fascist a film as anything made in decades. It is even more fascist than Fight Club, that ode to violence, barely repressed homoeroticism, and the rejection of consumer capital. Yeah, that fascist film Fight Club, we remember that. But here's the thing with The Patriot. Kieran, you talked about your film romanticizing Paris. It's kind of a setting. It's the same thing here. The American Revolution is a setting to put across feel-good American mythos, to just sort of watch a boring standard film and go, wow, this is a movie.
How many American flags are there? Is it a take a drink every time you see one and you'll be passed out within 5 minutes?
I mean, they're wars. I mean, there's going to be flags there, like in the battles.
Every time there is no reason why an American flag should be there, but they've done it just to make it feel more patriotic.
How far back does the American flag as we know it go?
So they basically had it at this point. It just had less stars, and they were in a circle or something. Because there were 13 colonies, and one of them was South Carolina. That is where the bulk of the film takes place. And Mel Gibson is playing a fictionalized character who is based on some real people. There's a lot of controversy around some of those people.
Wiki reckons 1777.
Yeah. Wait, for what?
The current design of the U.S. flag is its 27th. The design has been modified officially 26 times since 1777, suggesting that the original one was 1776.
Yeah, a lady I think named Betsy Ross allegedly sewed the first one. That's the kind of crap they teach us at school instead of like actual things. We learn apocrypha like George Washington chopping down a cherry tree, and I don't know if they tell us that that's fake. I don't know. But basically this is a movie about the American propaganda version of the American Revolution, told by a German director, Roland Emmerich. Of course, famous for not being American, but making Independence Day.
But he does like America, and
he likes destroying it, at least.
Very Tommy Wiseau-esque, except we know that he's from West Germany.
And that he did not hit her.
Well, we don't. Do we know that? I haven't read through his wiki. But yeah, basically what it's about is Mel Gibson. Oh, and by the way, his other amalgams. One led the Whiskey Rebellion, which was a bunch of disaffected American veterans who wanted back pay for their serving in the Revolution. And then something about whiskey, too. I don't remember that part. His name was Daniel Morgan. And then you have Thomas Sumter, who was called the Gamecock. And then the place where the American Civil War started was Fort Sumter, named after him. And then the other one is Francis Marion, who American and British historians fight over how terrible a person he was. Definitely owned slaves, definitely committed some war crimes, but American historians are a lot more positive. You know, they have a rosy outlook on him, whereas the British are like, no, fuck that guy. So, yeah, basically.
Are we talking about this character, or are we talking about Mel Gibson?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. The character of, I think, Benjamin Martin, he's an amalgam of all those guys, but the most idealized version you could ever imagine. We go to his plantation with his 7 idealistic little white children, and there's, you know, a black mammy who's raising his kids. There's all these other black dudes around working the fields. And then we later find out they're all free men. He doesn't own his slaves. He let them go. And I don't know if he pays them.
And did they stay because they like working on the plantation that much?
Yeah. They really wanted to keep work. I guess what they would say is, well, there was already a house and he was giving them 2 hay pennies. So, by the way, I've read actual Spanish slave codes. Like, you could go back and say, well, they had to give them a house and food. That doesn't make it okay. But basically, this movie, Spike Lee was very critical of the whitewashing of slavery in this film. This dude would have been a slave owner. Like, it's so stupid to dance around the whole slave thing, which is what the movie does the entire time. It basically only has people that say, I think slavery is bad. And there's one other guy who's like, oh yeah, you could take my slave to be a soldier. And so basically he's giving up his slave because he can't fight. So he's like, this guy's going to go fight for me. But Benjamin Martin, not technically a slave owner. He is experienced in war from the French and Indian War. And now he is sort of riding the line. He wants the colonies to be independent, but he doesn't want to do war. I don't remember why, because then most of the movie is about him doing war. And I think the big thing is none of it is about the like larger idealism of America. So when you are making a movie called The Patriot, what image are you creating of the Patriot? It is this patriarchal figure with his 20 kids and his dead wife. He actually ends up with his sister-in-law. You know, that isn't weird at all. And it is actually better than Francis Marion married his first cousin. So I guess they thought that that's a step up. Sister-in-law, still technically related, but no blood.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah, exactly. That's the American way. But yeah, it's all about the family. It's all about the individual. There's no collectivism. There's no sort of, you know, we're doing this for freedom and we're doing this for tax. They will say stupid things like, I don't like taxation without representation. And there's a point where his sister-in-law wife says, it's a free country. Well, almost. It's so dumb. There's so many just really stupid American quoticisms, whatever we say, that are put in there for no reason.
You're saying it, not us.
Yeah, well, technically an Australian is saying it and a German is telling him how to say it, but
I
sure.
mean, actually, Mel Gibson is American. Apparently, he moved to Australia when he was like 11 or 12, kind of thing.
Well,
Move back.
George Miller disagrees. And then Heath Ledger, also Australian, the other main actor in this movie. Fortunately, Lucius Malfoy is British, so at least I think so. He's not Australian too, is he?
No, he is British.
Okay.
He's from North London.
Good. They did manage to get some actual British people. Now, the guy that his character is based on is from Liverpool, and apparently is a big hero in Liverpool. And they got really mad about the way he was slandered in this film through a fictionalized character.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah, his
Try and keep
name.
away from Liverpool.
His name was Bannister Tarleton. Let's see. Yeah, Sir Bannister Tarleton, 1st Baronet. I don't know of where, but I guess Liverpool or something. Who knows? So pretty much.
Actually, that's interesting. Actually, Jason Isaacs was born in Liverpool as well.
Ooh, well, there you go. Authentic.
That's a nice quote.
He's a Beatle, essentially.
Yeah, might as well have been. Bigger than Jesus, because everybody's seen Harry Potter. So that's really what the movie is. It's those two kind of having a one-on-one duel throughout the entire revolution. This is not a small microcosm of time. This takes place from 1776 to 1782 or 1 or whatever year the war ended. And the inciting incident is Heath Ledger is Mel Gibson's son. He goes off to join the rebels because he's like Luke, where he's like, I want to go to the academy, and except he's talking about the rebels
and fight the Empire.
Yeah. And he does, and so he's off in war, and he's like, dear father, blah blah blah, blah blah, and then he comes back home somehow. I don't know when. He gets wounded in a battle near South Carolina, wherever they are. And the British are there. And so they change him out of his uniform. And they're like, oh, yeah, he's just here taking care of all kinds of soldiers. And this Heath Ledger's just one of them. And Lucius Malfoy finds out that it's his son. And he's going to hang Heath Ledger. And then he shoots Mel Gibson's, like 5th or 6th son or whatever, who he wants to be a soldier. He has like a little toy soldier. It's deep symbolic stuff. It's very American Beauty-esque, I'm sure. You want to talk about bad Oscar-nominated films. This was nominated for 3, but none of them are like real. I mean, the big 5.
Technical categories.
Yes. Things like costume or hair or whatever. And so he shoots the son, and that's, it's kind of sad. Mel Gibson is really good at tragic acting. Like his ability to be like, no, my kid died, and like just have this shock mixed with sadness. He puts that through really well. But I think Heath Ledger shines a little bit more out of the two of them, just because Mel Gibson's role is so boring to me. But yeah, he goes on a revenge tour, essentially. He joins up with the Americans, and he leads guerrilla warfare campaigns against... Are y'all familiar with General Cornwallis?
I've heard the name, but I don't know what he did.
Yeah,
I'm
sure...
have heard it in some Western from the 50s.
It would be like asking me, oh, have you heard of just some random general? The only reason he matters is he was the commander of British forces in the U.S.
It's Tom Wilkinson. I love Tom Wilkinson.
Oh, yes, the performer.
6-7 months ago.
Yeah. So he's attacking Tom Wilkinson's underlings and Lucius Malfoy's group. They're called the Green Dragoons. Who knows if that's real? But they wear green, so in the big battle scenes, we know who they are.
Yeah. We definitely have had dragoons in British military. Yeah, don't know.
We had dragons in British history, but
well, that depends on who you believe. Now,
we've always had dragons, mate. We've always had dragons.
If you listen to the Young Earth creationists, we do have them here in America.
Well, dragons or dragoons?
Both. So essentially, the whole, I watched the extended cut, so I don't know what's in it and what is not supposed to be in the original film. But there's just so many battles. It's honestly boring.
Jesus Christ! Even the original cut is 165 minutes. That's too long for a Roland Emmerich film.
It's tiring. It's so tiring. It's
how
so
long
boring.
Was the extended version?
I don't know, 3 hours nearly. It's so boring. I've never seen battle scenes be so unengaging and so uninterestingly edited. There could have been more intercutting. I don't think there's any year markers, so they'll just kind of say it is now 1780, son, blah blah blah. Um, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm gonna ask the question because I mentioned it in our conversations in passing as a joke. With the casting of Mel Gibson in this, do you think this is in a way trying to ride on Braveheart's coattails?
I mean,
because
Americans
Mel
didn't
Gibson
know who
in
William
another-
Wallace was, surely. So, incidentally, more so than purposefully, I'd guess.
Yeah, because it was just like, okay, Braveheart won
yeah,
the
I mean,
Oscars, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is 5 years after Braveheart, but yeah, I suppose if you got Best Picture for it, kind of for directing and starring. So, I mean, if they're able to ride on coattails, they'd get him to direct it as well, surely.
Yeah,
and how is John Williams' score in this?
It's so see, I heard the first part of the music and I was like, this is like the most standard, boring. Oh, John Williams did this. No wonder he probably did this in his sleep and got nominated for an Oscar. Like, it's so bland. I tried to think of when is the last time we had a, drama, biopic, whatever, similar to this. And maybe it's just my, bias in that I only watch the interesting ones. But, I tried to think of a movie like this. I came up with The Revenant. And it's not made anything like this at all. It's just so bland. There's so much military stuff going on that I don't care about. But finally what happens is I will say that Lucius Malfoy is really good as the bad guy. He just...
I've noticed we've got a cast member in common our films. Chris Cooper's in this as well by the looks of it.
I was hoping you would say Scott Bakula, but I didn't notice him here.
Yeah, Chris Cooper plays...
Captain of the Enterprise.
Yeah. I didn't see that scene, but essentially what happens is they're living on a slave plantation or something in the later time, or I think it's escaped slaves or something, whatever. It's a commune because they burned down Mel Gibson's house too, and so they're staying there, and someone betrays them and is like, oh yeah, they're staying at a plantation. And the British, they round up all of these American people, put them into a church. It's that scene from Come and See where they burn the women and children and old people inside of a church. So on that plantation, Heath Ledger gets married to whoever his girlfriend is, and she gets burned up in the fire. It's so pointless, and it's obviously been compared to the actual Nazi war crimes, and because it didn't happen, there were so many think pieces about why are the people making this movie trying to align the British with Nazis? Why are we trying to create this image? And it's so weird seeing that in 2000, and then a year later this is just... I think there was actually a quote in one of these that said, what if they had put somebody or Arabs? And I was like, oh, you just wait 2 years and you will start getting those evil Arab movies again. Don't you worry.
Hurt Locker is only 8 years off.
Yeah. So, yeah, a giant war crime happens. By the way, earlier, Mel Gibson committed a war crime. He just started killing people that said, oh, we surrender. And he was just shooting him in the face. And someone was like, Mel Gibson, don't do that. And he was like, don't do that. Of course, I should not do that. And then for the rest of the movie, he's just the model soldier. But it turns out during the French and Indian War, he was committing war crimes left and right. He's just murdering...
Character or Mel Gibson?
No comment. I can for sure say the character in the movie. I will not say anything else because I don't know if these streams are covered under American libel laws or British. So, yeah, basically the end of the movie is Mel Gibson, who already has every motive for revenge, now has super motive revenge because of the Come and See, which, by the way, if you've seen Come and See, that's such a depressing, powerful, just god-awful scene. It's an amazingly done scene. It evokes so much negative emotion. And this one, I was just like, Are they really about to burn these people in a church? Oh, okay. I mean, this is kind of lame, and I don't think this really happened. I'm going to Google it. Oh, it didn't happen. Great. Oh, a lot of people have written articles about that, how this didn't happen. Awesome.
When you don't care in a film that lots of innocent people are being burned in a church, you have an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I mean, my general rule of thumb is like history on film. It's like it's never going to be, it's not a book. It's going to be, you got to artistic license to an extent, and make your story kind of engaging and exciting and all that. But yeah, if you don't care about the characters, and you're noticing stuff like that, and your mind's drifting, and thinking, I wonder if that actually happened. Because if it was an effective scene, you probably wouldn't be thinking that. You would just be caught up in the moment. So that's not good.
Well, what's more is I read an article that was citing like 2 experts on this period of history for America, and they were like, no, this never happened. In fact, the Americans might have been committing more war crimes. Funnily enough, the untrained soldiers just have guerrilla warfaring all over the southern U.S. Might have been doing some unsavory things. I don't know. They did steal guerrilla warfare from the natives, so like I was waiting for them to start scalping British soldiers and then like framing Indians for it. Fortunately that never came. I don't think there were any Indians in the film at all, in any capacity, which doesn't make any sense. There would be some at the very least.
Yeah, and if it's a 90-minute movie, you could possibly argue they didn't have the time. This is what the normal cut is like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
No, there's no excuse, not even to have it in as a vague strand in the background.
They managed it in that French karate movie we watched. There was a native guy, and they couldn't do it here, where they actually lived. So pretty much now that Mel Gibson has super... Oh, and then the other super revenge, because there's not enough need for revenge. Heath Ledger gets killed by Lucius Malfoy, and oh my god, that's Mel Gibson's best moment, is when his eldest son is dying. But yeah, I was really sad that Heath Ledger died, because I wanted him to make it, but he didn't, and so they I don't know, they have a big final battle scene where there's times for all these one-on-one fights.
Yes.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, this is the only bit of the film I've ever seen is the ending with them scrapping with each other.
Yeah, so the British guy has a sword, and Mel Gibson has a hatchet and a knife.
Appropriation.
Well, I'm sure he got it from some Indian or something.
Yeah.
Again, they make no real mention of them other than fighting the French. But now there's a French guy, because the French were on the American side, or what? Just because they hated the British, I'm sure. They don't teach us much about that. They only teach us about that one guy who was also in the French Revolution.
Yes, I only know he's Lafayette again because of Hamilton.
Oh, yep, yeah, that's it. So big battle. For some reason, they're fighting one-on-one. In a giant battle where people are shooting guns. Neither of them get hit, and Mel Gibson kills him. Apparently that guy, in real life, if we're going to say that they're Francis Marion and General Tarleton or whatever, if we're going to say those are the real people, Tarleton outlived Francis Marion by like 30 plus years and died happy on his estate in like Liverpool or whatever. A revered hero. Apparently he had just started his military career here in the U.S. So this was his first real action, and the war crimes that he committed in America were, there was a questionable moment in a battle. Like that's it. It's a disputed moment as well. And so the way the movie ends is Mel Gibson saying like, so I wasn't involved in the rest of this, but here's a dramatization of Cornwallis surrendering at Yorktown because of the French and George Washington, blah, blah, blah. the movie's over, and like Mel Gibson I was expecting him to stab Lucius with the American flag that he carries at the end. He doesn't. That's a bummer, but yeah, it's such a boring movie, and you're not going to learn anything from it because it's all fiction or just completely made up stuff. Apparently,
that's what fiction is. Yes.
Yeah, but like whole cloth. Just where have I heard of like people getting burned in I don't know. Let's put it in there. That might have been this.
Not even just like getting shot or something like that.
They had one moment where a bunch of British people did line up behind American soldiers and shoot them in the back of the head in a mass killing like the Nazis. So super weird when you start bringing in the Nazi illusions to the whole deal. Like there's a Telegraph article that I read about that aspect. There was one from The Guardian 2. That one had a very strong title. Mel Gibson's latest hero, a rapist who hunted Indians for fun. Again, a little bit disputed, but Frances Marion was by no means a good person. But I think the most interesting thing about this movie isn't the movie itself, isn't anything to do with the story or the action or the cinematography, because all that is so bland. No, the most interesting thing is that this movie was one in a series of films reviewed by David Manning. Have either of you heard of David Manning?
In passing.
No, you haven't, because he is not real. David Manning of the Richfield Press is a made-up film reviewer by Sony Pictures Entertainment's advertising department.
Probably why I've heard of it.
Yeah. There's a pastor, David Manning, who is an insane person, who said they put semen in lattes at Starbucks. But this was written...
Starbucks near me wouldn't surprise me.
This was written in June 2001. The reviewer, who wasn't there, the Ridgefield Press, which was unaware of the deception, is a small Connecticut weekly, but that's where any verisimilitude ends. An unidentified Sony employee apparently concocted the Manning persona last July, using the name of a friend and attributed fictional reviews to him. Supervisors using the quotes in movie ads didn't question Manning's legitimacy. It was an incredibly foolish decision, and we're horrified, Sony spokeswoman Susan Tick said of the hoax. We're looking into it, and we'll take appropriate action. And
I'm looking up, apparently on August the 3rd, 2005, Sony made an out-of-court settlement and agreed to refund $5 each to dissatisfied customers who saw Hollow Man, the Animal, The Patriot, A Knight's Tale, or Vertical Limit in American theaters as a result of Manning's reviews.
Yeah. Man, that that is the funniest thing ever. And then how do you draw the line between like a fake review versus a Sony employee wrote a review? I guess it has to do with the attribution to the actual newspaper, but like it's a real review in a sense. If I make up a character and start reviewing as them, are my reviews fake? I don't know.
I think it's more the point that it's done by the company that have released the film.
Yeah, I'm sure that violent.
And they weren't honest about it. You know, they made a playlist specifically.
The Onion.
Yeah, I was going to say this does bring up the question: when are we going to get AI reviews by companies?
Sorry, when?
For the companies?
Yeah, they're already out there.
When will we identify them?
I mean, like on the posters and stuff like that. You know,
it is a movie. ChatGPT. Yeah, I think that is surely the most interesting aspect, because the movie is boring, and don't watch The Patriot. And if you want to like learn about this stuff, watch a documentary. Watch like historians talk about it.
Or just listen to Hamilton again.
Yeah, listen to Hamilton. Watch a better version of this. Like, there's a kids TV show that played here, and it was called like the Revolution Kid. I don't know what it was called, but they would like sing songs, and the kids would run into like the people of the revolution. Oh, I did learn that there was one instance where British soldiers did burn down a lot of homes. They were empty homes, but they burned down like basically a whole city. And that British regiment was led by Benedict Arnold, the famous traitor to the American cause. So it was an American committing war crimes against Americans, which surely happened a lot because there was like this battle of Kings Mountain that was between loyalist Americans and true American patriots. So, yeah, we didn't learn about that either. I had to read up on some of these actual battles. So yeah, that's the Patriot. It's really boring. Go watch The Hurt Locker if you want some real patriotism and soldiers. And honestly,
Zero Dark 30 if you
more
want to see
realism.
war crimes committed by the Americans.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to see war crimes that actually happen, yeah. God. Watch any other American movie and not this one. Does Transformers have war crimes? It probably does.
I think Transformers is a war crime, but that's besides the point.
Do the Transformers count as uniformed officers, or are they civilians? Like, which way... What are the rules of engagement?
I mean, surely if you're fighting them, it's an Independence Day remake.
I mean, in the second one, they're because they were the first one. The second one, I think they're working with the military, they're almost like hired contractors, aren't they? The kind of, so yeah.
So they can do whatever they want.
Random point, but that is something I would pay to see. Fast and Furious, where in the middle of one of the car chases, suddenly turns into a Transformer and Vin Diesel's in it. That I would pay to see that.
Yeah.
That's the crossover we all actually need.
Hey, they're coming to it soon, I'm sure. So that's it on the Patriot. It has America in it, just not in the title. So yeah, freedom, America, something. Mel Gibson is Australian.
America.
Thank you. Good job, Kieran.
I know. My arts and crafts skills have come in useful.
Okay. I mean, guys, did we learn anything today?
Aside from the fact that all three of our films, despite being very much revolving around America, don't have that much to do with America.
Mine's the closest, and it still doesn't, somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe the real America was the friends we made along the way.
There we go. All right.
Yeah. Maybe we'll find it in America 2, Electric Boogaloo.
That's going to be the sequel to that terrible animated Netflix movie.
Which one?
America the Motion Picture. Okay. So that's it for this episode, but Kieran and Sam will be back to oppress me once again next week. But if you can't wait until then to hear that, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine. Nothing new since the last episode. Check out my anniversary reviews of Chinatown and The Lion King, if you fancy that.
Especially the Chinatown one, considering the screenwriter has died in the past 24 hours or so.
I was thinking you're...
R.I.P. Robert Town, yes.
You're really going hard into the art versus artist as well.
Yeah. And hopefully you don't find me anywhere. If you do, I'm K-Judgmental in the various places. The only thing I have up in the last week or so, I think, is a review of Anatomy of a Murder, the 1959 film.
I really need to see that. I can't believe I've never got around to it at this point. But,
I got around to it for this review, and it is a very good movie. I very much enjoyed it. And it's got George C. Scott in it as well.
Yes.
Being the slightly unhinged George C. Scott properly. So it's great. Yeah.
Nice. And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy, and I mean you'll find my writing at the Film Magazine, but couple...
I was going to say your writing's gathering dust at the moment, isn't it?
No, because there's no dust on the internet, fortunately. You could go check out a review from Mark, though, whose last name I'm not going to butcher. He reviewed Yorgos Lanthimos' Kind of Kindness. Kinds kinds of kindness. It's plural. And then also we have the echo of Old Boy in Monkey Man. Now, I'm not sure if they're talking about the original or Spike Lee's movie that exists. That was written by fellow Jake Fittipaldi. So it'd be cool if we had an Italian guy now. That'd be awesome. Guest writer, but that is the author of that piece. So go check out those and all the articles that we have at TFM.
I was going to say, we've got bits and pieces for Sam Mendes, but we don't have an American Beauty review, which is surprising. So obviously, Sam, this is what you need to get on for.
Yes, yeah. I did the review of 1917, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's my Bond ranking, which obviously Skyfall and Spectre will be in there. But yeah.
Yeah. Look out for his every Kevin Spacey ranked. That'll. Do you think we could write that, or do you think that I don't know?
Look, if you want to write Kevin Spacey movies ranked, Jacob, you write Kevin Spacey movies ranked.
Joe, weigh in the comments.
It gets removed. Yeah.
Maybe we could redact it, just the whole thing. Every
the
redacted.
Whole thing has got lines stricken through it. You know.
Number 1, redacted. Oh my God, we could just put the movies and then not say specifically who it's about. All right.
A list of films ranked.
Yeah. With some connective tissue that we're... Go to our PayPal down below and give us cash, or buy things at our Redbubble store, like Sam's cool phone case from The Shining, or water bottles or shirts.
I replaced the Shining one with one that says Kurosawa in kanji. So.
Are you sure that's what it says?
I hope so.
Yeah. But that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Adios.